Hello everybody, my name is Swaggy and welcome back to Twitter.com. Did you miss these? Today we're gonna talk about decks that are really close to being meta relevant. Vanguard is a game where any deck can win, but only some decks can do it consistently. With that in mind, what decks are so close to being meta relevant and consistent winners? For me, my pick would have to be Mytharch. Mytharch doesn't read that bad on paper. It has a multi-attack inbuilt to the Vanguard, it has decent board building, and it has a hand rip in lieu of Zul. The deck keeps getting supported every 3 sets because it's a Youthquake deck, and right now has a pretty good and substantial engine. Mytharch is really good. Rizmi might be the greatest card ever printed both in art and effect. And honestly, it can produce a really efficient 5-attack turn that always drains your opponent out of resources, and you can search a Persona Rise, you can call whatever you want off the top 7. It has Mytharch Habitat in its archetype, and you can use its secret second effect to add it to your hand. Theoretically, this deck should be at least kind of good, but it just isn't. It relies a lot on the Persona Riding so that you can keep doing the hand rip, which a lot of the power is built into that, so your units don't have a lot of power themselves. Because you want to use a bunch of on-call effects, the on-call effects A have to be kind of good, which most of them are just okay, and B, you've only got like 5 rearguard spaces, and most of them are taken up by one thing or another, so it's gonna be hard to keep using those on-call effects. Nevertheless, I feel like the foundation is really good and we're like 1 or 2 cards away from something really special with this deck. And we will soon see this hand rip in the same way that we see something like Shojo Doji's hand rip. So, let's see what you guys brought. Ratfucker says, I believe that Eladegma is just Bruce in his Batman costume. But yes, Bruce man, give him more power! Bruce is a pretty fun case study, because a lot of the time, people will look at decks and they'll go, this deck can achieve X amount of attacks on this turn and therefore it is good or therefore it is bad. Bruce kind of puts that on his head because it can do 7 attacks going second on turn 3 and he sucks. His right line has a random soul charge and doesn't really plus you that much and can be stopped by really specific things in the game like the Dragon Empire Ace unit. Some of the Final Rush cards don't work very well with Bruce because it doesn't do it in the main phase. His Final Rush only comes on in the battle phase. You have to see an extra piece in order to get the 7 attacks going. It's really well designed to me in that if you can get all the pieces going together, then it really does feel like a really well put together sports team. And there are a lot of games where just 7 attacks with Genos and Julians and high powered columns are enough to kind of cheese a game out, but with 2 drives and a Vanguard attack that's pretty wimpy altogether, the deck just doesn't really come together as of now, especially when you can see what the other meta decks can do with so little input and so much output relative to Bruce. It makes sense why he's not really formidable, but I swear this is a correct answer. I swear it's just like 1 Vanguard away. Just give me another Bruce. Look, if Zorga can have 5 Zorgas, I can have the 4th Bruce? I can have the 4th Bruce. I also need a new Matt, a new Richard, a new Steve, some new rear guards. What I'm trying to say is all I need is a new right line, a new rear guard, a new Vanguard, and we will be set. This deck is so close. I swear the mechanic isn't outdated. I swear. Karu says, honestly, the new Wretch plus Twilight Boundary might genuinely make this deck consistently able to pop off turn 3, but failing that, a new Orfist entirely that takes out the Masks package to pop off turn 3 just as hard would be welcome. So I kind of agree that Orfist Masks is almost there. Its numbers are really good, especially if you have the double grade 3 order, the Overcoming. If there is a new Wretch in set 12, I think the deck could see a new Breath of Life as well. When the grade 1 order came out, I was pretty convinced this deck was gonna be crazy and I bought into it, and it's just kind of okay. Like, there's a lot of issues with playing a very aggressive strategy like Orfist and Vanguard, and just like sometimes your opponent checks the green color trigger and then it's over for you. Not only that, sometimes you can miss the mask pieces if you're in a really mask heavy build. If you're playing Regis Turbo, you're playing Regis Turbo, so it's not very good as such. It's kind of fragile because you gotta discard a card and you only have Twin Drive. But I swear on my life, it is 1 Wretch away from a tiered competitor. I swear. Sync says the answer is always Shojo Doji. They had to hit its consistency, but they could unrestrict it now and the deck would still need higher numbers, and a way to use bound cards to guard easier. Shojo Doji is probably the correct answer, right? Like, the deck is seeing tops now with 2 Izaso and basically no new support in a long time. Maybe like the Shield Cycler is the most recent buff to the deck, but the deck kind of has the sauce already, right? Like, it has, again, a hand rip, it has a really robust multi-attack, it has a defensive skill, It's just that the aggression it has, while pretty potent still, sometimes it's really dependent on what is in your bind zone and you can whiff that. The numbers innately aren't very good to begin with, so you kind of have to do a lot of finagling so that you can have the same amount of power something like Vyrgilla would have just by riding Elf Knights. I think this deck was kind of almost on its way out when it was getting banned anyway, as in like it would have probably been dropped like tier 2 or tier 3 as is, but now it could probably be back at full power and it would still need like one more wave to see success. I'm not really sure what we could ask for in the form of a new stealth card that would bring this deck back to the forefront, but I think there is some potential there if they just want to print something good. Starforce Geo says, all I'm saying is this deck gets triple drive, calls from top 5, and an order that can just call from drop or give a crit on restand and multi-attack, yet it just falls short of being able to hang with the big boys because it feels like it needs just another way to plus or close out games. Story time on Nanakar. My beautiful partner, my lovely Claudby, has been obsessed with breaking this deck in some way. I have seen a new card every time she brings it out at the table to play with me. Theoretically, the deck's shell is very strong because Nanakar herself kind of does a little bit of everything, even if it is kind of boring to some people. The order isn't bad. You can play the other orders like My Partner Loves Frozen Resentment. You can play stuff like Tideline Dragon for aggression. You can play like Shield Cyclers if you really wanted to get defensive, but you probably don't. The deck now has 2 ways to get criticals on rear guards in its 4 attacks. The deck's filtering is pretty good, and it just didn't get a triple rare in the follow-up set to when it came out, which is really strange. Nanakar has to be close, because it is so unbelievable that there is a deck with so many weird restrictions and crit that the deck can feel so close to being crackable. They have to be cooking something with Nanakar in the back, because I cannot believe that they would introduce a new character to the show, give her Nanakar, not give her a new triple rare, and then give her a package that feels almost there, but not quite. There has to be more back there. I'm certain that this deck is going to make it someday. Trust. If I'm wrong, you may hit me with grass. Clear Mind says, I am so serious when I say this. This deck is genuinely incredible to close to being very good. Its main issue is if you don't draw Bifrons, you lose, but with Mulligan, that's not too often. But this deck needs a way to reasonably get 5 in the bind turn 3 or a good rear guard attacker. Astroyer, I feel, is also pretty close. The deck has a non-zero amount of tops in this new form. Bifrons is the craziest card ever in exactly Astroyer, and I think they're being very careful with it because a deck with a consistent way to achieve Persona Ride is kind of a scary thing because Persona Ride is a broken mechanic. I'm pretty sure one of the rear guards gains crit as well, so it has 2+ critical attacks, a way to interfere with the board, and yet somehow it's not seeing more success and didn't even see success in its debut. To me, that's kind of crazy. If this deck could get 5 in bind by turn 3, like easily, we would see this deck played at top tables. I swear it. I feel it in my bones. We're close. Zan says, definitely Flam Glam in my opinion. She has one of the best engines in the game that consists of looking at top X and adding it to the hand, calling from the deck and drawing while giving front row power. The deck needs a new Vanguard that gives the rear guards more power and enables a 5th attack in my opinion. I think Flam Glam is already in a really good spot. I think for a rogue pick that gets supported once in a while, this deck is really fun and really good. The power and like rush it kind of has is strong. Its mid-range is pretty good too. I'm not sure giving it the extra attack is what they would want per se. I think the slots in your front row are kind of set in stone. No, you want to have one of the Great One and then one of... No, actually, I guess you could give it a 5th attacking Flam Glam rear guard. But still, the band's getting really crowded. One of the things that I kind of find with Flam Glam is that you have to counterblast 1 for Rogia's skill. To use Dive to Blue, you need to counterblast 1. So it kind of adds up over time, especially because you're counterblasting starting from turn 2 to get this amount of offense. So maybe a mechanism by which we can countercharge 1? It's a stretch, but maybe if this deck was a bit more resource efficient, we could see it at higher tables. I don't think the numbers are necessarily the issue. I think the pressure is pretty decent, and I think the speed at which it plays it's nice, but I think once the game gets to a grind, it's kind of difficult. So if we want the deck to be good, I think countercharging is the way to go. If we want the deck to stay kind of in theme with its hard counterblast restrictions and still be aggressive, then I think maybe the power is better. Just pick one of the 2 directions and I promise you that Flam Glam will be good. Heck, I promise you Flam Glam is good now. Build Flam Glam, trust me, you will not regret the 20 cents you spend on it. I'm recording this on the day of the Silhouette presentation, so we will see if Sunny is correct. Can a new Vanguard and possibly new arms completely fix Silhouette? Eduardo says, Alden Nation rise up. Okay, less biased, Alden is a really solid deck, and only this year it's top sometimes because of, Chile, BCS in 2025. He got top 8, congratulations. And with the new support in Z11, it's amazing. So, Alden is a really interesting case because it did just win all of Indonesia. I think it has a top in Malaysia as well. So what's wrong with Alden now? Why isn't it good? Or like, why aren't we seeing it dominate the meta? Aside from maybe mechanical reasons like, oh, it's a twin drive deck in a game where triple driving is pretty much ubiquitous. Oh, it's a little too fair. Oh, its power kind of has a ceiling. It doesn't scale into like really late grind games, and it's not super resource efficient because it requires your deck and can't really call you from your drop, etc, etc. I don't think those are all necessarily true, but I think they play a part into Alden's seeing lacking success. But I am convinced that the only reason Alden doesn't see more success is because he doesn't have hype moments in aura. Let me explain. I think that in order to see a high play rate, it is not just about the card's text. It's kind of about the aesthetic and the fantasy that they sell you. You know, pretty girls are gonna always be played by card game players because, you know, some of us, you know. And a lot of really cool, edgier knight aesthetics or really cool monster aesthetics fit a lot of people. But Alden kind of plays it really straight. He's a good boy, you know, he's a very regular knight. And I think that aesthetic is a little too bland to get a lot of people playing the deck. And because it had a really lukewarm release, people are still perceiving it as that lukewarm deck as opposed to the deck it is right now, which is a really efficient deck at drawing cards and always having stuff in your hand, bouncing stuff to your hand, and having a really potent early and mid game with a bit of a lacking late ish. So what I'm trying to say is that if Alden himself transed his gender and became a woman, much like Magnolia is doing right now, we would see his play rate skyrocket. Do I still say he in that situation? We would see his/her play rate rise, and we would see Alden dominance, the likes of which we've never seen before. And I do mean never seen before. Unless you play premium and this guy was in a loop, what the hell happens in that format? All is that to say, I think it's pretty good. Very, very close, like 1 to 2 good cards away. Okay, I felt this way about the Alden answer too, but this deck already is good, right? Like this deck already tops. Like even if you don't perceive it as very good, this deck already does like top in like individual tournaments. Granted, the set 11 card's not particularly good, but the deck is already meta relevant. Not to say this poster doesn't like the deck or anything, but I am saying that statistically the deck is doing fine. It is in the meta and you have to consider it. I don't think it has to be dominant to be meta relevant. I think this is a deck that you consider when thinking about your matchup spreads. Jester says, Night Rose is always close. The deck feels like it should be relevant with the ability to use basically any Stoichia cards and having insane deck compression capabilities, but it just can't surpass the fact that the first stride turn is horrendous. Maybe I am completely brainwashed by Big Bushi Road, but between Hari and Night Rose's more setup turn 3 strides, I don't even think those are that bad. I just think that stride decks kind of give up a fair amount of things, like having more information available to your opponent to decide going first or second, the ability to get kind of grade locked for a bit, and the compensation isn't very good. Like it's not enough to compensate for the fact that you're giving away this much information and you're only good into certain scenarios. But I don't know, even with those limitations, I feel like both those decks, I'm talking about Hari as well, are pretty close, especially now with the new promo card, the new promo orders that they have, which I was convinced on. Like, I thought these decks would do a lot better. I think we've seen like one Night Rose top by technicality recently, and that's it. But I don't know, I think Night Rose could still do with this format. The kind of issue with playing stride decks is that you give up a lot and you just don't get much in return, so that you can say Generation Stride every turn. Like, that's the benefit to playing a stride deck, is so you can feel really cool. There is of course value in the scaling, of course there's value in some of the more defensive tools that stride decks have, well, specifically Night Rose here. But relative to decks that are just persona riding and killing you on turn 2 and 3, it leaves a lot to be desired. But yeah, this is a good answer. I think Night Rose is right on the precipice. Seriously. Maybe the new Deep Lands cards comes with a nice little generic drop zone support for it? Maybe? Probably not. Jay says, okay, so I know everybody says this every time it gets a card, but Dredge is always so close to being playable, it just needs 1 to 2 cards that actually fix anything. The new support in set 11 are great steps in that direction, and a single great one that actually allowed you to +1 would do it. I'm gonna say the opposite and say no actually. I think Drajeweled, he's had it too good for too long, in that he is constantly supported since like Ignis. He's got, you may not like it, but Compositive Freaks counts. He got Lithozarga, he got Magnus, he got Lavanjader. He's getting a lot of stuff and he's just not there. I think the exact opposite. I think he's a long way from being good. Sometimes I'll repost stuff on Twitter, or I'll send stuff to my friends about decks that are kind of more quirky and more interesting that made a placing in team tournaments or even individual tournaments. And I think it's cool to always be like, oh wow, that's a Greed on top. Oh wow, an Archetype top. Like, those are really interesting to see. And now I'm just praying that I can see a generic Drajeweled top, because this guy's not anywhere. Maybe I'm the bad player and I don't see it, but this deck is so bad. It doesn't do much of anything. It has all sorts of restrictions, like his own skill, like Lava and Jada. Like, why is Lava and Jada grade 3 locked? Like, Littlesarga isn't. We went back a step. Surely the threshold this hits isn't much better than Littlesarga. It quite frankly isn't. So I will consider this the anti-answer. I think this is the only deck that we can't fix. He's too far gone. Do you know those scenes like in martial arts films or whatever where the guy has his hands tied behind his back and he still beats up all the goons because he's that much better at like the fundamentals of martial arts? That's what Michiru is in the anime. Playing this deck to him is like having his hands tied behind his back and he's just beating the shit out of everyone else. That's the whole gimmick of it, I swear. I don't know, maybe I'm just being overly mean because I spent a lot of money on this deck, but yeah, he's bad. And he says, probably cope as fuck. It is, but I always felt like this deck isn't that bad if not a bit resource heavy. I also think that Achal Libra is like one rear guard away from being good. I don't think he's one rear guard away from being fun. We probably have to rework the whole thing from scratch to be fun. But I think he is like one good overcharged rear guard away. He's kind of similar to Alden in that I thought he and Alden have very similar problems, that they can't really finish out a game aside from just multi-attack and praying. Their power lines are really high. Theoretically, you can draw quite a bit of cards in Achal Libra if you're just using the grade 1, the counterblast one to draw one, and a lot of Achal Libras are on like 4 draw, 3 draw. And this deck has like a plural number of tops. It just struggles closing out a game. And I'm just surprised they haven't done like a, if this card is overcharged, it gains +1 critical to the end of the turn or something like that. I think that would, you know, be a little boring, but it would probably fix the deck. Hey, boring card design fits Achal Libra perfectly. I'm just being so mean in this video. Why am I being so mean? Raycon says, Shield Fisher Dragon. Give me more support. It would be funny. Yeah, sure. Fuck it. Yeah, Shield Fisher. One card away for sure. Claret says, I want this Wildcat to go burr on the field. We can hit high ass numbers with multi-attacks. I just want him to be awesome. I guess my most biased take is that I think Magnolia is already pretty good. He's like a B tier deck. He's fine. He has kind of the problems of he needs Persona Ride to work, but when he works, he's really strong and powerful. I've been recently toying around with the Elder package build. I'll put a link in the description. I'll put a post up on the screen right now by Davey, I believe his name is. Fantastic build. I had so much fun with the deck. I don't miss Persona Ride basically. The numbers are all really good. You can kind of sack your way to a victory by declaring power onto the center and then checking a front or something. Like, it's fun. Especially with the new promo card that lets you mill anything or add anything to your hand. That card is crazy powerful. And honestly, I can't wait for the day when we are all complaining about Magnolia rather than thinking it's cool. Honestly, it's probably good that this deck is kind of middling right now to maybe decent, because if this deck was good, people would complain about it to no end. 6 attacks every turn, 5 attacks before you're grade 3. It has a ton of card draw, it has triple drive, it has intercept denial, its numbers go crazy high as well as having the 6 attacks. Like, if this deck was good, it would be the focal point of criticism about bad game design. But as it stands, I can swing for like 20k to guard every attack and then pretend I'm oppressed as well. It's great. But yeah, one good card and I think he's well on his way. Here on YouTube, Taifu Eye says, my boy Granfia. The deck has awesome pressure with rushing and kill the opponent if they don't have enough things to guard with. On grade 3 turn, Noble Rose can get to 40 to 50k easily with the new promo, but the deck really needs hands and a way to survive. Well, you got the way to survive. Did you see the new Noble Rose token? I'm just kidding. What the deck needs is way more hyper offense. Give it a 6 attack or something. We have a guy who, at the university, kind of like a card game local, we have a guy who hosts it like kind of weekly during the semester. Shout out to Luke if you're watching this, who once sat a bunch of us down and just started talking about the good old days with Granfia and BT12. It was an incredible, it was a really funny conversation where he just kind of talked like the image of Mr. Krabs over the campfire to us about how good Granfia could be or how good Granfia was and how it could only be stopped by those dastardly Keel triggers. It was a very fun conversation. So I hope Granfia players get the amount of love that Leonorn players get at some point. Like, I think the deck is funny. Like, just give it more power actually. Give it 120k attacks. Just do it. Who cares? Let it do whatever. Bobo3Albo says, I'm coping for Tamayura. We just need a way to call Riris and Raras out of the soul or to benefit in some way or shape or form from having a lot of them out of the deck. So I also think Tamayura should have been one of the good glitters, right? It has a multi-attack, it has some board interference, it's pretty formidable, all things considered. Like, I don't know, when I first came into the game and the glitters were already out with their evolved forms, I thought this deck was so close to being good as is. I was like, what? You can do 5 attacks and you can hit my board. How is that fair? As it turns out, it's really fair because Tamayura's numbers are horribly low. There's another answer here somewhere on my YouTube feed where they say majority of the glitter decks, if they got the Eva treatment, and I kind of agree. I think a lot of the glitter decks are really good. Like, Michu is pretty close to being good again. We don't talk about the new Roroa, we don't talk about him, but the old glitter ride of Roroa is really good. Again, Tamayura I think was almost there. Chaos is still doing great with Mikani Turbo, so I don't know, I think the deck is real close. So I don't know, I think all the glitter decks are pretty close. Again, maybe Degria's the furthest away, but still, the numbers are okay. It's got the double Persona Ride thing going on, it's resource efficient because it has the Keter cards. But hey, like all parents, Bushiroad has a favorite. There are 2 people here who say Galactic B-Hero M-Hom and Tails 2012, and I think B-Hero already is there. I posted about this a while back, but there was a player in Japan who in a team tournament went completely undefeated, like his individual record was undefeated, playing B-Hero against a slew of meta threats. The deck is fine, like the deck works, it does a ton of attacks, it's really affordable. The only issue is that the deck is kind of clunky to put together and like to figure out, like it's not super intuitive, so you have to do some finagling with it, but aside from that, I think the deck is already there. What more could you want? Maybe a new Grade 1 ride line? But how could you make that better? I don't know. I think the deck is already there. Just try it out. Don't believe that it's bad just because it doesn't see too much success. When it sees success, it really sees success. So what have we learned from this? A lot of the decks in Vanguard right now have really good foundations and are just missing a couple of connecting threats in order to make the deck good again. Whether it's improved guarding or improved attacking, most decks are one nice triple rare away from taking them from nobodies to heroes. Except for Drajeweled. Nothing can save him apparently. We've tried everything. And by that I mean we've tried giving him 4 restanders and none of it worked. Alright, that's all from me. Bye bye. Any deck can win because Overtrigger exists. Yes, that was the point of the tweet, to find decks that win without the Overtrigger. Come on, read the prompt.